Alright, guys and girls. Who am I kidding? Girls aren't watching this. Anyways, I'm going to explain what some of these symbols and some of these numbers on these cards do. Let's start with maps and exiles. Since maps and exiles are the first things you're going to see in a game and the biggest part of the game. Okay, here's the name of our map, marshes. Map type, it's a swamp. So the fact that it's a swamp means that we can only play mobs, that's these green guys here, that have swamp type. And here's the text box: mobs level 4 or greater gain +1/+1. So let's talk about mob levels. If you and or your opponent have one mob and one swamp in play, this little guy right here is a 1/1. This number at the top, 3, is mana cost. So at the beginning of your turn during your upkeep, you calculate all the maps on the board. So if you've got 3 of these and your opponent has 2 of any map, there are 5 total maps in play. You get 5 mana. So you could afford to play this little guy for 3. When you play him, he's going to be a level 1. This is for all mobs. Now, during your next turn, you do a level check. Let's say you own 3 of these, and your opponent has 2 maps, 3 maps, and they're also swamps. This guy would be a level 4. Because if you've got 3 and he's got 3, let's say there are 6 swamps in play altogether. Actually, if there were 6 in play, he would go straight to level 5, and he'd be an 8/6 attack and life, 8/6 mob. That's how level checks work. Now, your exiles begin the game in play. You don't have to cast these guys. They start off already in play. So let's look at our berserker. Let's move these guys out of the way. Let's look at our berserker. He has 4 of these, which is our strength symbol, and 2 of these green ones, which is our dexterity symbol. So he's got 4 strength and 2 dexterity. He's an exile, he's a marauder. He gets +1 attack and +2 life until end of turn for each enemy he's fighting. And he's got 8 attack and 3 life. So if we wanted to equip something, let's say we wanted to give him Ichimonji. Well, first we need to, do we have 3 mana? If we do, we can play it. 1, 2, 3, this is a 3 mana cost equipment. Does our exile have 1 strength and 2 dexterity? Yes, he is. So in the game, if we had our game loaded up here and I wanted to do it, you would pretty much drop the card in play and attach it. Bam, and now they're attached. This exile has this gear, but this is just an example. So if Ichimonji was attached to Berserker, it would look something like this in a game, right? Ichimonji, Berserker. He would get a +1/+0, so he's now going to be a 9 attack, 3 life. And when you play an aura spell, you can increase or decrease any number in that card by 1. So let's say we played this. Wait, that's not an aura. I had a herald. Yeah, here's my herald. So let's say we played this in the middle of combat. Tap 2 mobs, up to 2 mobs or minions. Now you see this number, life 3 or less, we can increase that to 4. Will we want 4 or less? No, we would want that. Yeah, we would. We would want that to increase. By decreasing it would make this card worse. Life with 2 or less mobs would hardly kill anything. But mobs with 4 or less life, let's say this little guy was over there, he would get destroyed because he's only a 3. Whoa, how'd I do that? Oh well, bye-bye, Roa. So that's how Ichimonji works. Alright, we're done looking at that. Let's look at another thing. Let's look at Ice Crash. Let's say we wanted to have us a Ice Crash Berserker wielding an Ichimonji. Can we afford it? No. It needs 2 intelligence and 2 strength. He has 0 intelligence. But if we gave him Carnage Heart along with his Ichimonji, it says adds 2 intelligence, 2 strength, 2 dexterity, and a +1/+1. Well, now he has 6 strength, 4 dexterity, 2 intelligence. And it also makes him a, what is that? 10/4, 10 attack, 4 life. Now he has the stats to then equip Ice Crash. Now on the game board it would look probably about like this. He's now an Ice Crash Berserker with an Ichimonji and a Carnage Heart, and all his damage, oh, he gets another +1 from this, so he'd have 11. So the 11 damage he deals when he fights is all cold damage. And Freezing 3 is an ability that at the end of combat, he gets to slap something for 3 damage, and it's all going to be cold damage. So if there's a little mob that just barely survived, this can usually finish it off. What else we have? We have some boots. We wanted to give him some boots too. You can see here when you start to stack an exile, when the game has been going on for a few turns and you've been drawing cards and playing equipment and stuff, it can get pretty full pretty quick. That's why a lot of the things in this game that you think should be permanent, like, you know, when you take spiritual aid, passive node on a tree, should be permanent, but man, if we made this permanent, that would just be even more. We're going to limit it to just gear and gems for now. Gains momentum, gives him 2 fire res. So if he was ever dealt fire damage, you'd always reduce that number by 2. So if there was a spell that hit him for, say, 5 fire damage, he only takes 3 instead of 5. If he's fighting another exile that has a skill gem that is 100% converted to fire, and that exile has, say, 7 attack, well, he's only going to take 5 damage from that 7 damage attack because it is 2 fire res. That's how that works. Spiritual aid, again, casting cost at the top. So if you have 3 mana in your mana globe, you can cast this for 3 and bam, give him +1/+1 for each minion. Well, he owns no minions because he's a berserker, so he's going to get nothing. If you put this on a necromancer, however, or maybe you're running a witch with some skeletons, it could be a pretty good card. Now, a lot of these book of skills will have some sacrifices. If you're a ranger and you're traveling all the way across the tree to take this node, sure, it's a nice little damage boost, but what did you give up? Well, all the stuff you gave up is at -4/-4, so a lot of these book of skills have some drawbacks like this. And if we were looking at our cockatrice game, like how it'll look in the actual game, chieftain with gold rim, and let's say we equip him with a magna eclipse, attach it to chieftain, bam. Now our chieftain has 2 pieces of gear. Does he have enough intelligence to do ice crash? No, he doesn't. Would this give him enough? No. Could we possibly give him? No, we can't. See, this would be a bad. So when you're building your deck, pay attention to things like this. Don't put ice crash in your deck if you've got nothing but chieftains and gladiators and assassins. Unless, of course, you have things. Let's draw some cards. See what we get. Flame Blast, Avatar Fire, Wild Strike. Oh, we could play this on... Alright, if we put Lahoop of All, Lahiup, I don't even know how to say this word, on our Assassin, put it on Gladiator. Attach card, Gladiator. Alright. Wild Strike, attach card, Gladiator. There. So this is giving him 1 extra of each, so he's got 3 strength, 5 dex. This thing only needs 2 dexterity and 1 strength, so he's now a Wild Strike Gladiator with Lahoop of All ring, and I'll have to choose an elemental type. Let's go ahead and make him fire. So he's going to be a fire attack Wild Strike Gladiator, because that synergizes pretty well with old Chieftain here. If we look at Chieftain, well, this is all enemies fighting this exile lose all fire res, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. But it could be good to kind of maybe pick something different. I don't know. That's the whole point of the game. You figure things out depending on what your opponent's playing. Maybe if your opponent has no fire res because they're not wasting it on this guy, you go ahead and add that to benefit. Or if they do have fire res, you know, maybe you make him lightning and force all the guys with the fire res to block him, or to defend is what we call it in this game, instead of him, and so on. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know.